Welcome back to yet another session, Reality of Jesus. My name is Simon. So, last week we started talking about how God speaks, and we touched on two main ways that God speaks. That was through His Word, the Bible, and through the still small voice. And I kind of touched or glazed on how each one of those works. But there's more we can share about each and every one of these. So we can always talk about them in the future. So today I was going to focus on dreams and vision. I've separated them because they're distinct and they're different. But let's look at them and then talk about them, and hopefully you'll be blessed. So I'm going to start with dreams. So dreams are very common in the Bible. I mean, all of us have read, not even one or even two dreams. At the top of my head, I can probably count at least 5. But God uses dreams to speak to people. And you can see it all the way from Genesis to Revelation. So if God is speaking through dreams in His Word, in the Bible, and God doesn't change, so we can rest assured that even today, He's still speaking through dreams and visions. So Genesis 20, just a quick example. Genesis 20, King Abimelech had taken Abraham's wife, and God speaks to Abimelech through a dream, and He tells him, "You're a dead man for taking this man's wife." So long story short, He tells Abimelech to return Sarah to Abraham. So he spoke through a dream. Now what's fascinating about this is Abimelech isn't a Christian. He wasn't even Jewish. So God can speak through dreams to anyone. And one of the most amazing thing about God speaking in dreams is that He bypasses our consciousness, which is usually a barrier when it comes to hearing God. In the waking life, when you're awake, unless you're used to or you're intentionally trying to hear God and you're used to hearing God, it becomes very difficult to pick His voice, because you wonder whether it's you or it's God or it's the enemy. So there are many voices speaking, and there's so many distractions around us that it becomes hard to pick out God's voice. But when you are asleep, it's very easy, because God bypasses all that noise around you. He drops this message as a dream into you. So let me read Job 33 verse 14. From Job 33 from verse 14. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when the deep sleep falls upon men, in slumberings upon the bed, He opens the ears of men and seals their instruction. He opens the ears of men and seals His instructions. So at night, He doesn't have to deal with your consciousness, you questioning, and all these things that are happening around you. At night, He can just take the message, the instruction, and just deposit the instruction in you. So God is still speaking in dreams. Even in the New Testament, we see it happening. So someone cannot say, God speaking in dreams was an Old Testament thing, not in the New Testament. And a few quick examples in the New Testament is Joseph. After Mary told Joseph she was pregnant, Joseph was going to leave Mary. But the Bible tells us that he had a dream, and an angel told him not to leave Mary and to take Mary as his wife. So that's in the New Testament. Back to the Old Testament, one of the most common dreams that we know of is the story of King Solomon. King Solomon had a dream, and in this dream, God appears to him and asks him, "What can I give you? What do you want?" And King Solomon asks for wisdom, and he ends up receiving wisdom. And we know the rest of the story. So God is still doing the same today. And as a matter of fact, I am led to believe that He speaks more in dreams and visions today than in the Old Testament. Why? Let's read Joel chapter 2, verse 28 to 32. This is what it says. Then, after doing all those things, I will pour out my Spirit upon all people. I'll pour out my Spirit upon all people. He poured out his spirit during Pentecost. So Prophet Joel is talking about the Pentecost here. We are in the last days. So he says, I will pour out my spirit upon all people, and your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams, and your young men will see visions. In those days I'll pour out my spirit even on servants, on everyone, men and women alike, and I'll cause wonders in the heavens and on the earth. So in the last days I'll pour out my spirit, and people will dream dreams and see visions. So I believe that God is speaking more in dreams in our day than he even did in the Old Testament. Why? Because now when you get saved, you have the Spirit, the Holy Spirit in you. So right now he can easily communicate to you by giving you a dream or a vision. So the problem with dreams in our day is most people are on either extreme. People are on the extreme ends. So there's some people who believe God does not speak in dreams anymore. That is done. He used to speak through dreams in the Bible. He doesn't do that anymore. But we've seen from Joel saying, in the last days I'll pour out my spirit. So that cannot be true. So, but the other extreme is those people who think that every dream is from God. No, every dream is not from God, but God can speak through dreams. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 5, verse 3, I believe, it says dreams can come from a multitude of business. So meaning if you're doing a lot of things, if you're focusing on one specific area or preoccupied by a certain thing, you can end up dreaming about the same thing. And I think most of us have experienced that. If you go and watch a horror movie, most likely you can end up dreaming a dream that you're in the horror movie, or a scary dream. It's not a dream from God, it's from a multitude of business. So I think those people are on those either extremes, and there's an element of truth on either end, but they just take it to the extremes. God is still speaking in dreams today, and every dream is not from God. So you have to figure out if the dream you received is from God or is from the multitude of your business, or just your normal life. Our bodies sometimes will process things, our feelings, our emotions, our desires. It will process that as a dream at night. So we have to be able to differentiate between those dreams and those dreams that are coming from God. And there's so much about dreams, I don't think we're able to go into more details today. But all we need to know, and the point that I'm trying to make here today, is God is still speaking through dreams. So now that we've established that God still speaks through dreams, now after you've figured out this is most likely a dream from God, you have to understand that a lot of dreams, I would say more than 99% of dreams, are symbolic, meaning they have to be interpreted. They're just symbols that are placed that make a script or a movie, and that's what you perceive as a dream. Now you have to take this clip, which is your dream, and then look at the symbols in the dream and the storyline, and kind of cross-reference with your life, and then see what the dream means. Now that requires time, it requires skill. In the book of Daniel, it says that Daniel was very skilled in the interpretation of dreams and visions. So it's a skill. So it's something you learn over time. So we're not going to get into interpretation, but dreams are symbolic. Let's say if you dream getting a new job, that dream is most likely symbolic. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a new job. It might mean you're getting something else that's new, or you're moving to a new place, or God is bringing something new into your life. So, but are there literal dreams, like they don't have to be interpreted? Of course, even in the Bible, there's a lot of dreams that are literal. You just have a dream, it is what it is, what it says, that's what it is. So we still have those dreams, but it requires discernment and wisdom to know whether the dream is symbolic or literal. but most of the time dreams are symbolic. So most likely than not, the dream is going to be symbolic. So if you have a dream about having a baby, most likely it's not talking about an actual baby, even though there's that small percentage that it could be an actual baby, but most of the time it is not an actual baby. It's just basically God telling you He's bringing something new into your life, or something's going to be born. He's going to establish something new in your life. So dreams are very, very symbolic. And as you grow into understanding how God speaks, then if it happens that you dream a lot, for some people they dream a lot, for some people it's once in a while, for some people they don't dream at all. So if that's not one of the ways that God speaks to you, then of course, there's nothing much you can do there. But even if you get one dream a year, I can always say pay attention to that dream. Just a few examples in my personal life. There was an example that I gave last week about my green card. It was a big case, an impossible case. I had no chance, and I've given this testimony before in another video, but I don't think I mentioned this. But I had a dream about 6 months into the court case, that last court case that I was gonna have, and I had a dream. In this dream, just very fast, in this dream I am back home in Kenya, and then in the dream I remember, oh, I am not supposed to get out of the country. I'm not gonna be able to go back. And I was so worried and so concerned. But then I paused and I remembered in the dream, no, I have my green card back. I remember getting it in the mail. So in the dream I remembered, I removed my green card and I said, I remember getting this in the mail, so I have it back. So, and then that was it. It was a long dream. There was a lot of other things happening in that dream, but that was just a small portion of that dream. Now what happened was, so I wrote the dream. I always write my dreams down. If you dream a lot, I would advise you to do that. And then a couple of months down the line, after I had the dream, I am praying early in the morning, and the still small voice that we talked about last week, I heard the voice telling me, review that dream. Now it was early in the morning. I don't usually review my dreams early in the morning, not usually. So that day just so happened that I just felt this nagging voice. It kept telling me to review that dream, and I could remember the specific dream, although I have a lot of dreams that I've written, hundreds, and I could remember the specific dream just telling me, it was telling me review the dream. So I said, okay, I'm going to review it. So I sat down, pulled it up in the computer, and then I read the whole, at that time I don't know what I'm looking for, I'm just reviewing the dream. So I read the dream, and it's probably about 3 pages long dream. So about maybe 1.5 pages, I get to that part where I'm in Kenya. I remember, so I've written it, so I'm reading it, I remember that I don't have a green card, and then in the dream I remembered I received the green card in the mail, and immediately that still small voice tells me, you'll get your green card in the mail. And there was this conviction and this knowing. It was so real, like it just happened. I just jumped up and I was like, I'm gonna get it in the mail. Now remember, the case is still pending, it's still there, and this is the last court case before I'm deported. So what I'm hearing, what I'm getting from this dream, and what the situation is, they're very contradicting. So and that's how sometimes you'll know God. He'll tell you the opposite of your situation. He'll speak life into you and not death into you. He will not speak discouragement. He will not speak disparaging words or discouraging words. He speaks life into you. And that's one of the ways actually to differentiate a dream that's from God and a dream that's not from God. If a dream is from the enemy, it'll be condemning. It'll be a dream that condemns you rather than encourages you. I'm not saying they're not bad dreams, and sometimes you can have a bad dream that's from God because He's trying to tell you something, but the overall sense you'll get is a dream will uplift you, will speak positivity into you, and not negativity. But anyway, so after that dream, I was so convinced, you couldn't convince me otherwise, That day I told my wife, guess what? I'm going to receive my green card in the mail. She probably thought I was crazy. And yeah, because it sounds crazy. Because we all knew the facts of the case. We all knew where we were. We all knew what the situation, what the outcome was most likely going to be. But here we are, out of a dream, 2 lines in that dream. And I'm saying, this is going to be different. Long story short, that case was resolved. It disappeared. The case didn't even last 5 minutes in court. And so the case was dismissed, and they're going to reissue my green card. And of course, when they process the green card, they're going to send it through the mail. So the dream will come to pass when they send it and it comes through the mail. That's just one of the examples. So when people say God doesn't speak in dreams anymore, it is dangerous. God is still speaking in dreams even today. There's so many examples I can give you. I don't think we have that time today, but just believe this, that God still speaks in dreams even today. Now, the last part, visions. So visions are very similar with dreams. There's very minor differences. So a vision happens when you're awake or half awake. A dream happens when you're in deep sleep. So when you're sleeping at night and you're in deep sleep, you're going to dream. That's a dream. But when you're half awake, although it's at night, there's that zone when you're half awake, you're almost asleep, but you're not into deep sleep. Or you're waking up, you're not all the way awake, but you're not in deep sleep. That zone right there. So that's why most of the visions happen. And that is because, your consciousness is suspended. You won't fight what God is telling you. So that's when you're most likely to get a vision. There are 2 types of visions. There are open visions and closed visions. So just lightly, I'm just going to skim this over very fast. Open visions, you see something externally with your eyes. You see it. It's like a screen. I myself have never experienced it, so I'm not going to tell you I've seen it. But from what I've read, what I've seen, what I've read in the Bible, an external vision is something that you visually see with your eyes externally. But when it comes to internal visions, they happen internally. It's a very simple concept, and I'm going to break it down and make it very simple to you, because it took me a long time to understand internal visions. We all get internal visions. We just don't know it's a vision. So, and that is why for a long time, and for a lot of people, they don't know they're getting visions, because these visions, they're very simple. They're very simplistic. Here's a good example. Now, I want you to think of an orange. Have you thought of an orange? Good. Now, I want you to think of a green apple. You got it? Good. All right. I want you to think of a bride and a bridegroom. You got it? You got a picture? I want you to think of a green car. It's a car and it's green. Now, I want you to think of blue skies. Clear blue skies. You got it? See? You just had all those are visions. Very simple. I know. All those are visions. All those pictures that you had in your mind, those are visions. And visions can be pictures, or it can be like a script, like a small clip that you see. So here's an example or an exercise. I want you to imagine eating an orange. So I'm gonna walk you through it. So pick up the orange. You're imagining. I want you to imagine it in your mind. So imagine picking up an orange. You're holding it. What color is it? Orange. I want you to go ahead and peel the orange. Peel it. And then after you get done, go ahead and split the orange into those small parts. And then I want you to start eating the orange. Perfect. So that's a script. That's a short script. And because it's successive, it's pictures that are successive, then it is a vision. So you just had a vision. So that's how simple it is. That's how simple it is. So internal visions are very simple. They happen to us all day. Now, there's a difference between a vision that you yourself have induced and a vision that God gives you. The difference, of course, is like the example of the orange. When I'm telling you to peel it, split it, eat it. I'm inducing that vision into you. So you can induce your own vision. You can imagine anything you want to imagine. You're giving yourself those internal visions. But when the vision is from God, now that imagination, that script is going to come into you without your effort. It's like daydreaming. Daydreaming is a form of like a vision. But daydreaming, you start somewhere. You start by seeing something that triggers another thought, and then that thought triggers something else, and then before you know it, you just find yourself thinking about something that's so unrelated to what you were doing. But it starts with a conscious thought of something. But now a vision that's from God, it will not start with a conscious thought. You just perceive it in your mind. So it's exactly the same thing. It's imagination, but that script will not come because you thought about it or you induced it. It just drops in your mind randomly. So I think I went too much into details, more than I wanted to, but that's the difference between open visions and internal visions. Now, like I said, a lot of us do get those internal visions. They happen, but if you're not aware, you'll think it's your own imagination, because it is from your imagination. That's why the visions happen. Another topic that would be a good topic to talk about is imagination. Imagination is very powerful when it comes to hearing God. Your imagination is a very powerful tool. And actually, the first day I heard that, I laughed, and I'm like, are you crazy? My imagination? What does that have anything to do with God? But trust me, I heard it so many times to a point where I was like, okay, there gotta be something here. Visions, internal visions, they happen in your imagination. It sounds like, or it feels like something you're imagining. But when God is giving you that internal vision, you didn't start it. You just realize when the vision has ended, or when you're in the vision. Good examples of visions are Ezekiel 37, when he's talking about dry bones. That's a vision. So and there, of course, we can go into examples of open and closed visions in the Bible. There are many examples, but so an internal vision is just basically, it sounds like your imagination, but when God is giving you the vision, it's not going to be you inducing that imagination. It's going to be God that drops that clip in your mind, and then you become conscious of it. You just realize, I'm thinking about this and I wasn't thinking about it, or I'm thinking about this person now and I wasn't thinking about it. So today God still speaks through visions. In the New Testament, we see Paul having visions, we see Peter having visions. So it's a very common way. And even last week, I don't know if it's last week or today, we read Joel, where it says, in the last days I'll pour out my spirit, and people will see visions and dreams. So they're very common even today. And actually, I think they're more common in the New Testament, which we are in the New Testament, than they were in the Old Testament, because we have the Holy Spirit. So yeah, so just to give a few examples of internal visions that I've had. I've never had an external vision. I'm not gonna lie to you, I've never had it. So some of these things you cannot really force them. God gives them to you as He wills. So examples of some internal visions I've had. In church, I'm talking to this lady. I didn't know anything. I mean, we just met. I'm seeing her for the first time. She's in church for prophetic ministry, and I look at the lady, and then I close my eyes, and then remember, visions are imaginations. So in my mind, I start seeing this. It comes like you imagining things. So I start seeing the lady on a roller coaster. She's on a roller coaster that's going in loops, and it's one of those roller coasters that go very fast. So people scream, they're scared, and I can see this lady, she's just scared and distressed. And then the roller coaster goes down a hill, and it ends up at the bottom of the hill. So I look at so I asked the lady, are you going through? I usually explain what I'm seeing, because sometimes visions, like I said, visions also need to be interpreted, although they can be literal. So sometimes I like to describe what I'm seeing because it might make more sense to the person than me. We prophesy in part. I don't God doesn't show you everything. He just shows you a small piece. So I described to the lady what I saw, and I told her, I see you in this roller coaster, and you're very scared, very distressed, and you're going in this loop, and then you end up down the hill. And I feel like God is saying you've been in this scary ride, rough ride. Things have been very difficult. It's been very rough, and you've been in this loop where you feel like you're not moving forward. You're just in the same place, scary, rough, and nothing is just getting better. And the lady just starts crying, and she says that is very true. So that's just a quick example. Another example was it just happened a few weeks ago. So I see this guy. I don't know the guy. We're just meeting for the first time, and then I have this again. Sounds like imagination. Sounds like me imagining. So I start imagining, or this imagination is coming to mind. But I am not the one who's inducing the imagination. I'm just still. I'm just holding still, waiting for God to drop something in my imagination. I will start playing. So I see the guy standing under a tree, and then on top of a tree I see a snake, and the snake is looking at the guy. And that is very strange. It was very strange to me. I'm like, am I thinking things? Because it sounds and it feels like your own imagination. So I didn't even know how to ask the guy because it doesn't sound good, But I asked the Lord, I asked the Holy Spirit, what does this mean? What does this mean? Because I didn't want to tell the guy, and then it sounds like it ends up being something bad. And that still small voice we keep talking about, I just heard this word comes up: a woman. I'm still confused because I'm like, a snake, I see the guy, and then there's this woman. What does that mean? So I look at the guy and I asked him, with a lot of doubt, I asked him. So I tell him what I saw, and he's very bewildered. He's very confused. He was like, a snake on a tree looking at me? What are you talking about? And then I tell him, I felt the Spirit telling me there's a woman in your life that's causing you trouble. Is there a woman, a lady in your life that's causing you you guys are having a lot of issues? And the guy almost jumped to the roof. He says that is very true. I am in a very distressed relationship, and I am wondering what to do. And actually, before I came here, I told the Lord to speak into that relationship. So he had prayed, if when I go to that prophetic session, Lord, I just want you to tell me what to do with this relationship. Now, looking back, there are things I would have done differently, because now it sounds like the woman was being called a snake, but I don't think that was the right interpretation. I don't think I didn't tell him what to do. I cannot tell you what to do. You have to pray and get the answer yourself. But I feel like he did receive the answer he prayed for, because he wanted the Lord to speak into that relationship. And actually, before I gave him the meaning, the Lord reminded me of the story of Adam and Eve and the snake. The snake was used by the devil to lie to Eve. So most likely, and I didn't give these details to him, but this vision basically meant that this woman is lying to him. This woman is being used by the enemy to lie to him. But I believe he got the answer he was looking for. Now, why did God use the snake? I don't know. But he spoke, and that's what I conveyed. Anyway, so let's leave that there. One last one, and then I'll finish. And so at church, I see this lady again. It's the first time I've seen her, and then I just see the lady kind of confused. You know how you look like when you don't know where to go, like you're looking around, you don't know where to go. And then I see Jesus standing at a corner from a distance. He kind of motions with his hand, and then he shows like the lady where to go to with his hand, like this. Now, again, these things must sound fancy when someone is describing them, and that's one of the problems that I've had. When people describe these things, they use big terms, and you get lost, and you're like, man, I can never get there. But when you get them, they're so simple, because all this is just, it's your imagination. And we'll do a different session of just talking about how you can just take advantage of your imagination, because that is where God speaks from. It's from your imagination. That's why he drops his messages, his visions. And it's so important, because when they come up, it might sound very fancy when I describe it, but when it comes up, it's just your imagination. It's so simple. Like I said in last week, communication with God, how we hear God is so seamless, that is so simplistic, that we miss it, not because it's complicated, we miss it because it's so simple that we ignore it. So anyway, I don't want to take too much time. I've gone way over time. But I see Jesus just motioning with his hand, like he's showing her directions. And then the lady goes and follows the direction that Jesus is showing her. And then they go to another place, and I see Jesus doing the same motions again with his hand, and shows her where to turn. And then she turns. And then this pattern continues. So I look at the lady and I ask her, I tell her, I feel like you've been in this state where you feel so confused, and there are things that you're seeking direction from the Lord. And she says, yes, I've been asking for directions. There are some things I'm going through, and I'm seeking direction from the Lord. And I just tell her, the Lord says he will guide you and lead you. So those are just few examples of how God speaks in visions, and it's just by the grace of God. I'm not here to brag in any way, but my desire, my true and my pure desire is for people to know that they can experience God, that they can hear God, they can talk to God. We know how to talk to God, but hearing God, I want people to know that they can hear God and experience God, that it's not difficult, it's very simple. That is my true desire. I'm not perfect, I'm still growing. There's so much that I have to learn, and I'm still growing. So I'm not perfect, but my desire for you and my prayer for you is that you can also have the same desire to grow more into him, to know, to have more knowledge of who he is, and you'll be surprised. May God bless you. Again, if you guys want us to go deeper into one of these ways that God speaks, please feel free to leave a comment, or you can send me an email at realityofjesus07@gmail.com. I'll put the link or the email on the screen. God bless you. Have a beautiful week.